Today we're exploring one of the most beautiful aspects of many pagan traditions, the celebration of seasonal cycles. However, I want to start with an important clarification that will help you navigate pagan resources a little more accurately. We'll discover that while seasonal awareness is central to most pagan paths, different traditions have their own unique approaches to marking time's sacred passage. Now, you've probably heard of the Wheel of the Year. 8 celebrations marking the solstices, equinoxes, and the cross-quarter days. This is often presented as the pagan calendar, but that's not accurate at all. The Wheel of the Year as we know it today is specifically Wiccan. It was developed in the 20th century by combining Celtic fire festivals with Germanic and Norse solar celebrations, and then added a couple of more things in there. Gerald Gardner, Wicca's founder, created this 8-holiday system for his tradition. The 8 celebrations combine the ancient Celtic fire festivals with the solar celebrations from other traditions. This system works beautifully for Wiccans and has been adopted by many other nature-based pagans, but it's important to understand it's one approach, not the universal pagan way. Traditional Celtic cultures celebrated 4 major fire festivals that were tied directly to agricultural and pastoral needs. Samhain marked the Celtic New Year when the veil between the worlds was thin, a time for honoring ancestors and divination. Imbolc celebrated Brigid's festival, focusing on inspiration, healing, and the first stirrings of spring. Beltane was the great fertility celebration, marking life force at its peak and a community bond. Lughnasadh honored the first harvest and celebrated skill, craftsmanship, and community achievements. So these were agricultural festivals at heart, tied to specific regional needs, and didn't include the solar celebrations. These were agricultural festivals tied to specific regional needs, and didn't exactly include the solar celebrations, like the solstices and the equinoxes that are now part of the Wheel of the Year. Each was deeply connected to the practical needs of Celtic agricultural communities. Norse and Germanic traditions developed their own seasonal framework based on Northern European conditions and their own cultural values. Yule was a multi-day celebration around winter solstice that went on for a period of time depending on the lunar cycles, honoring ancestors and the return of light, including traditional gift-giving and feasting that influenced a lot of modern Christmas traditions. Dieseblot was a festival honoring the female spirits and femininity in the goddesses, often celebrated in late winter or early spring, focusing on fertility, protection, and family bonds. Sigurblot was a spring festival celebrating victory and new beginnings, marking winter's end and summer's approach with toasting, oath-making, and community challenges. They also had various regional festivals marking harvest times, community gatherings, Thanksgiving, preparation for war, raiding, or the winter months, depending on the local needs of those peoples. These celebrations were specifically adapted to the harsh winters and short growing seasons of Northern Europe. What unites these different approaches is the recognition that seasonal cycles offer universal spiritual wisdom that transcends specific traditions. Winter teaches us about rest, reflection, and inner work. It's a time for planning, a time for studying, and connecting with our ancestors and indoor types of crafts. Spring, however, brings renewal, new beginnings, and fresh energy, perfect for starting projects, planting, literally or metaphorically, and celebrating growth and the possibilities to come. Summer offers abundance, activity, and community connection, ideal for festivals, outdoor activities, and celebrating life's fullness. And finally, autumn provides harvest wisdom, gratitude, and preparation. It's a time for Thanksgiving, preserving what we've gained, and preparing for winter's introspection. These principles appear in some form across virtually all earth-based spiritual traditions, particularly the further you get from the equator because the seasons are a little bit more defined there. but it's very specific and very universal to all pagan paths. Modern pagans adapt seasonal spirituality to their local climate, their own personal needs, and their own chosen traditions. Someone in Australia celebrates opposite seasons from someone in Canada. Their autumn celebrations happen during the northern hemisphere's spring. Desert dwellers might focus on rare rainfall events rather than traditional agricultural cycles that you would see in northern Europe. Urban pagans find different ways to connect with seasonal cycles than rural pagans do, perhaps through farmers markets, seasonal foods, or changes in the city park landscapes. The key is developing authentic seasonal awareness that reflects your actual environment and your own life circumstances, rather than following a calendar that might not actually match your personal reality. Remember, you don't need to adopt any particular seasonal calendar to benefit from seasonal spirituality. Begin with simple seasonal awareness. Notice how daylight hours change throughout the year. Pay attention to local weather patterns and natural cycles. Observe how your energy and mood shift with the seasons and connect seasonal changes to personal spiritual themes. Simple practices might include choosing seasonal local foods when possible and noticing how seasonal eating connects you to those natural cycles. Bringing seasonal natural elements into your living space, creating simple seasonal meals as a spiritual practice, or changing your altar decorations or your household decorations to reflect that current season. The goal is developing awareness and a connection, not some perfect adherence to any particular calendar system. Let's conclude with key takeaways about seasonal spirituality. There's no single correct pagan calendar. Different traditions have different approaches that develop for their own specific cultural and environmental needs. The Wheel of the Year is specifically Wiccan, though many other pagans have adopted it and use and adapt it to their own personal eclectic path. What matters most is your local climate and culture. Adapt celebrations to your actual environment and life circumstances. Simple seasonal awareness is more important than elaborate celebrations. You can create your own seasonal practice that honors both tradition and your own personal needs. Whether you follow the Wheel of the Year, the Celtic fire festivals, Norse seasonal markers, rainfall events of the tropics, just remember to create your own approach. The goal is meaningful connection with natural cycles, not a rigid calendar compliance to a very specific day. In our next lesson, we'll explore the vital role of community and cultural sensitivity in the modern pagan practice. Thank you for listening to this portion of Lesson 4. Please continue with the course sections below, and I'll see you in the next one.